Hi, I'm Verne Lundquist, and today I'm picking it out with Andrew Pope.
Well, it's another podcast. Just called Picking It Out. It's another podcast, y'all. Just called Picking It Out. We got Mr. Verne Lundquist in the house. Yeah, and we're gonna be picking it out. And the guitar's out of tune a little bit. Well, hey, y'all. And Gracie, my cat, is apparently going to be present with us again. So my name is Andrew Pope, and appreciate y'all tuning in to Picking It Out again. You know, we ain't going to hem haul around today. We got a true legend in just sports broadcasting, television. I mean, just really, really honored to have this guy on. What a career he's had. Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award in 2016. Not many people pull that one. And really, really honored to have Mr. Verne Lundquist with us. How you doing, man?
Andrew, I'm doing fine. Doing very well for a Sunday morning.
That's the beginning of a new week. You know?
And some of us of a certain age have become increasingly grateful when, when, when we wake up in the morning.
Yeah. You know, I've known for a long time. I've always heard your voice, you know, whether it be the Masters tournaments or football. Um, and I've known, you know, the over the years, you're a sentimental guy, and I am too. And I had a feeling that you're just who you are, and that's why I wanted to really talk to you because, you know, we've had a lot of folks on here. Some I've kind of known through the music business. Some I didn't know at all. I was, you know, hooked up with them from another mutual friend. But I'm really honored that you wanted to come on and have a chat.
Well, it's my privilege to be here, and I'm I'm an open book, as they say. So you can take this any direction you'd like.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, what about LSU last night, man?
Oh, brother. Well,
God.
uh, you know, Lane Kiffin is his own kind of human being. Uh, take that for whatever it's worth. And so, and, and so many of us who were involved in SEC football, and as I was for 17 years, uh, we're not, we're not, I wasn't, we were at a music event last night, so I didn't get to see any of the last night's games, except the last quarter of Washington, California. Uh, and my wife said, "Can we go to bed now?" But I'm addicted to college football, and so I didn't get to. Well, of course, LSU Ole Miss was our game. That was Brad and Gary and the guys I've worked with.
Hmm.
Gary particularly for 11 years. But the production cast is the same. The producer Craig Silver, the director Steve Milton. Those are old dear friends of mine. Craig and I go back to 1983 when we worked together for the first time. So I did watch the start of LSU Ole Miss, but Texas and Oklahoma State were on a contrasting network, and we're in Austin right now. We live full time in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, but we came down here. we got a small condo in downtown Austin. And my wife went to UT, and Austin is my hometown. It's where I got my first job. And so we have an allegiance to the University of Texas. If any place, I went to a small private liberal arts college, Texas Lutheran, and so my major college allegiance would go to UT, I think. So uh, I saw Brad and Gary come on the air, and I knew that the telecast was in good hands, and so we watched Texas, and then we had to miss because we went to a concert last night, and so we had to miss the end, and I was shocked when they got out of the music event to read that Texas had given up 17 fourth quarter points and lost. And that, Andrew, that is the nature of college football,
Sure.
and it's part of what makes it so attractive to so many people. Anyway,
I think so too. I think you're exactly right. You talked about talking about Austin. I didn't really know uh, till recently that you kind of started as a DJ.
yes, I did. As a matter of fact, uh, my first job, well, first full time job in radio television was in radio. I was hired in Austin. I hate to tell you how many years ago, but it's like it's an open book. I was hired here the summer of 1963, and I was hired as a summer replacement FM disc jockey. That was my summer job. And a part of my background is that I grew up in the Lutheran minister's home, and I graduated with a degree in '62 with a major in history, sociology. I'm sorry, been that long, I can't remember what I majored in. A major in sociology and a minor in history, and I had no earthly idea of what I wanted to do in my life. And so I was comfortable in a Lutheran minister's home, and I thought, well, till I figure this out, I think I'll. So I went to theological school. I went to Lutheran seminary for one full year in Rock Island, Illinois. But I realized 6 weeks, that I didn't have the commitment. It requires a special kind of person, and I wasn't it. So I knew that I was not going to, but I've committed to finishing one full year, and I did. I've got 6 hours of Greek in my background. It hadn't been particularly helpful in my chosen craft. But so I started looking for a summer job, and Austin was my hometown. So I moved back here and was living with my mom and dad. So the price was right. And I was 23 and single. And while I was there that summer, KTBC in Austin was a radio television station owned by former President Lyndon Johnson and his wife, Lady Bird.
Mm.
And I was hired by a fellow. There's a local legend here. He just passed away about 4 years ago. His name was Cactus Pryor, Richard Cactus Pryor. And he gave me the job as a summer replacement disc jockey, playing music to make out by on FM radio, which was no big deal back then. FM was not, And so the sports director's job opened up, and I was not a good athlete, but I learned that at an early age. And I learned that I could talk about it and write about it instead of do it.
Uh-huh.
That's a painful lesson for a lot of young boys. I know that. And it was for me when I realized I didn't have any athletic talent. So you find different directions to express yourself. And anyway, I'd always been intrigued subliminally by a sports broadcasting job. And the August of that year, the sports job opened up. The guy who'd been had it for 10 years moved to Houston. And I went in to see my boss, Cactus Pryor, and I said, I'd like to audition for that. And he said, you really would? I said, yeah, I'm curious about it. So uh, there was no videotape, of course, my God. And I did well, it was a live audition, of course.
Yeah.
Program director and the news director were sitting in the viewing area, one floor up, looking down in the studio. And they came down, and Cactus said, it wasn't bad. I'm not ready to put you on there Monday through Friday, but I'll cut a deal with you. You work as a disc jockey on AM radio from 5 to 9 every evening, and we'll start you out on weekends on television. So that was my deal, effective September of '63. And they did hire another guy, and it didn't work out. They didn't care for him, and he didn't care for them. And so in March, Cactus came to me and said, you ready? And I said, yeah. So that was my first full-time job, March 1st, '64.
Wow.
And
did you just have a natural instinct to even the voice,
well, yes, kind of. I've never, Andrew, you don't have it either. I bet you don't have stage fright.
I did when I was younger.
Okay, that's
but
fair.
I don't now.
No, and to a degree, that was the same thing. I mean, I had listened. I got my voice. I was the lucky one. I was the oldest of 5, and we moved to Texas from Everett, Washington, now 30 miles north of Seattle. My dad took a church here. His first church was in Everett, and as the oldest of 5, my young speech habits patterns had been formed. And A, I got his pipes, and B, I never got the dreaded Texas twang. And that can be a killer if you're in radio television. I tease the brother who's closest, I'm close to, they live here in Austin. Danny is 6 years younger than I. And by God, it'd take him 3 months to get a sentence out that I can do in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got it. And so that can be detrimental if you're seeking, if you want to get to a national level.
Yeah.
I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
And I didn't, that was never an issue for me. So, and then, it's just a roller coaster from there on. Highs and lows, and hopefully it'll equal out.
But you did have a love for it, just.
Yeah, I did. As I said, particularly sports broadcasting. I was here 3 years, and I loved Austin, but I was afraid, not afraid. My aspirations were always a little larger than Austin, because it was a small market back then. Now it's a metropolitan area of 2 million people, but it was very tiny. And anyway, after 3 years, I suddenly thought, what you're doing is frivolous. You're really wasting. You need to find this was the old seminary and me talking, right? You need to find a purpose in your life. You got to do something worthwhile. Yeah. And so I did leave sports for an 11-month period. I moved to San Antonio and got a job with the NBC affiliate, and I anchored the 6 and 10 o'clock newscasts, and then filled in on a show called the Early Evening Report, and I was a panelist on that. And I just missed the latitude that you were given in sports. And so I knew I'd was not destined for a news career. And I auditioned for a job in Dallas in sports. And on the third try, I won the audition. First time I lost it, another fellow named Dave Lane and he was in Temple, Texas, about 60 miles north of Austin. And I was in San Antonio. And this is WFAA in Dallas, was still one of the great local television stations in America. And they hired a kid out of Lubbock, a guy named Woody Van Dyke. Dave and I both lost the audition. Turns out that Woody Van Dyke's father-in-law was the chief engineer at WFAA. So not that nepotism, not at all. But then he left after 2 years and took a job in New Orleans. And Dave and I both auditioned for it again. And Dave won that audition. And so I thought, I don't like what I'm doing. What's next? Well, Dave called me 6 months later, and we knew each other. Just small market television back then.
Yeah.
And he called me and he said, Jeannie and I are expecting our first child. I'm not going to raise a child by getting home at 11 o'clock at night. So I'm going to go into sales and I'm going to recommend that you be the guy.
Mm.
And so his magnanimous nature opened the door for me. And then I had to go back and re-audition and in Dallas. And again, it was live. There was no videotape. This was 67. Mm. and I was making, I remember vividly now, I was making $200 a week in San Antonio. And the general manager of the television station in Austin was a guy named Mike Shapiro. And he called me in after a half an hour waiting outside his office and said, okay, Lundquist, we're going to offer you the job. We're going to pay you $150 a week. And we want you to come in on Sundays and do a 15-minute sports wrap-up show. And we'll pay you $15 for that. And I gussied up and put on my best grimace. And I said, Mr. Shapiro, normally for overtime, you pay time and a half. And you're offering me halftime. I know I'm a sociology major, but even I can figure that out. And he looked at me and didn't smile at all. He said, do you want the job or not? And I said, oh, yeah. Okay. I'll work $15 for that Sunday 15-minute show. And anyway, and then, things happened. And the biggest break, Andrew, I got was the Cowboy Radio Network.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you were the voice.
Yeah.
And that was during the Dallas Cowboys years, man.
Yeah. We went to 5 Super Bowls. I did with them. I was watching the Fox pregame show here a while ago, and Terry Bradshaw, and we're still close. I worked with Terry 4 years and in the 80s, and he and I did a fundraiser for my alma mater together back in March. Anyway, that was some kind of a carnival ride working with Terry. Oh boy. Just, you better fasten your seatbelt very tight, snug and tight and low across your lap. You will encounter turbulence.
Yeah. I met him one time, and couldn't have been nicer. I think we talked about Mel Tillis. That's about all we talked about.
Did he sing?
No, he didn't sing. I met him when he doing his one-man show thing.
Oh, okay.
We was on the trailer with him, and he's like, "No, y'all ain't staying for the show. Please tell me, God, please, you're not staying for the show." I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna stay for the show." He's like, oh,
Yeah.
he's a nut, man.
Oh, he is. It was really a ride. I mean, uh, and he said we were together for 84 and 85. And then for reasons, this is the way television works, especially at the network level, for reasons that were never explained to either one of us, they split us up. Now, we were the seventh team on a 7-team rotation. Pat and John were number one, and Summerall and Madden. Uh, Terry and I were deservedly, because we were brand new together.
Mm-hmm.
But then they split us up for 2 years, 86 and 87. Never explained why. Terry worked with a guy named Tim Ryan. I was with Pat Hayden and then with Dick Vermeil for those 2 years. And then all of a sudden, they put us back together in 88, and magically, we had improved. And we were now the number 2 team. And we were behind Pat and John. And we got a playoff game, and that's always a big nod of recognition by your superiors. We did 2 of them, as a matter of fact. And then Terry called me one day. We were making a presentation on behalf of CBS at the NFL owners meeting, and we're driving to the event somewhere in Florida. And he said, Bubba, I think I'm going to ask to go to the studio. And I told him in all sincerity, I said, Terry, I think your presentation, not your act, your presentation will go down much more palatably to a viewing audience because they can see you gesture. They didn't see that on television. And it was driving Terry Bradshaw nuts that as long as John Madden was in that number 1 seat, he knew he never would be.
Mm.
That's how you win 4 Super Bowls. He was that driven and that much of a competitor. And look what happened. I mean, he was with Greg Gumbel in the studio until Fox got the NFL in 94, took the rights away from CBS, outbid CBS. And
that was in 94?
94.
Wow, I didn't know it had been that long.
I was working with Dan Fouts then. Terry was in the studio, and we were doing a Cowboys-Jets Saturday game in East Rutherford. So Dan and I and our producer, Mike Burks, who's with Fox now, we're sitting, and the rest of the production team, we were sitting around waiting for Jimmy Johnson, the Cowboys coach, to come in and do our normal visitors meeting. And we were at the Hilton Hotel in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And we just got the call from New York. And they said, after 38 years, 39, whatever it was, we have lost the rights to Fox for the NFL. And we're just stunned. And Jimmy walks in, little banty rooster. He's the one coaching the NFL that I'm taller than. And I said, what's going on, boys? You look like you've seen ghosts. And Dan said, Jimmy, we just learned that we've lost the NFL after 39 years, I think it was. And Jimmy looked at us in that little banty rooster way of his, and he said, it's a tough effing business, boys, no matter which side of the ball you're on. Okay.
All righty.
Yeah. And then the exodus began. A lot of guys, Pat and John went to Fox. Terry went to Fox.
Mm-hmm.
I was approached, but I had been sitting behind Pat for, by then, 8, 9, 10 years. And, 6, I guess. I'm exaggerating, not on purpose, lack of memory. And, but they asked me to come out as the number 2 guy behind Summerall. And this is when Pat was in the midst of his well-known, well-chronicled battles with alcohol.
Uh-huh.
And I had had my life disrupted too many times when Pat would go down and I'd get the call. And so I thought, no, I'm just not going to do that. And
Yeah.
so I elected to stay, and turned out to be the best thing ever.
And that was at CBS. You
Yeah,
stayed, right?
yeah. I started at network because of the Cowboy game, Cowboy radio job. Matter of fact, I really go way back to the early '70s. I started as a pre and post game guy with the radio network, and then a fellow named Blackie Sherrod, who was one of the best sports columnists I've ever read in my life, was with both the Dallas Times Herald and then the Dallas Morning News. Blackie was the color guy, and the play-by-play fellow was a guy named Bill Mercer. And Bill is 96 and still living. I haven't heard from him in a while, but he's a bright guy. Wow! And Bill took a job with the Texas Rangers when they moved from Washington D.C. He had always wanted to be Major League Baseball, so Bill accepted that, and that opened up the play-by-play job.
Yeah.
And Tex Schramm called me into his office, and he explained that Bill was leaving and the job was open, and he was going to promote me to the job. And I said, Tex, I'm thrilled beyond my ability to express, but you are aware that I've never done play-by-play. And he said, I'm quite aware of it, but I also believe you can do it, or I wouldn't choose you to be in this spot. So that's how I got my first ever football play-by-play job, was because of Tex Schramm's faith in my ability as a total novice to do the job. And the first game I ever did was, they used to do the old college all-stars against the defending Super Bowl champions. And this was in '74. Yeah, that sounds about right. The college all-stars against the Cowboys. 73. Anyway, like I said.
70-something.
Yeah, 70-something. It was back then, almost 50 years ago. And anyway, that, and Tex said, I had an offer to move from Dallas Fort Worth to Los Angeles to become a sports anchor at KNXT and the CBS O&O in LA. And I was, that was tempting. I mean, Hollywood and lifestyle and all that sort of thing. I do remember that when I flew out there for an audition, and we had lunch at the Beverly Hills Country Club. Sitting at an adjacent table, George Burns and Jack Benny. And wow. Now, your younger audience is going to go, who? Yeah. But they were giants of comedy back then. And I thought I could really get used to this. And so I verbally accepted the offer and doubled the salary. And I flew back from LA and hopped on one Braniff Airlines. And you got to be an ancient old coot to remember Braniff. But the Cowboys flew Braniff charter. So I got off one Braniff flight, went down the end of the concourse, hopped on the charter going to LA, and told Tex that I had this offer to go to LA. And he said, have you signed anything? And I said, no, but I've got the contract in my hand. He said, don't sign anything. Now I'm remembering the sequence of events. He said, don't sign anything until we get back from the Super Bowl. And they won that Super Bowl over Miami. We had a 4-hour lunch, Tex Schramm and I did, and that is when he offered me the job. And I said, well, what if I took the job in L.A. and flew back on the weekends? He said, not on your life, buddy. He said, I want you on Channel 8 television 6 and 10 every night because I want that subliminal connection with people watching you on local television and associating you with the Cowboys.
Mm.
And I mean, that he was just, oh, what a smart man he was. And so
Why do you think he was so? What do you think he seen in you at that
I,
time?
I don't know. Uh, uh, that's a heck of a question. He had some subjective awareness. Uh, I had known him then because I moved there in '67. This would have been in the '70s, as we agreed to say. Uh, and I think he saw me at work on the local television set. We had a phenomenally successful news operation at the ABC affiliate, WFAA, and at one point we doubled the audience of both the CBS and NBC affiliates combined. We were
Wow.
that dominant. So he saw me as a part of the most dominant newscast in the Dallas Fort Worth market. And I was just 1/4 of it, you know. But our news director, the late Marty Haig, was the best boss I've ever had in any relationship I've had with an organization. And I was there, as I said, for 17 years. And Andrew, I started with the Cowboys in '67. Brad Sham came aboard in '76, and he and I worked together for the next 7 years. I was the play-by-play, and he was the analyst, color guy, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my phone. Not sure what's going. You got a cat, and I got a phone. and anyway, uh, I think Tex saw. Well, let me be a little ostentatious here, and there's something about a television camera, a lens, and I can't understand it. It's really kind of mystical, but it's been my experience that the person you see in your living room is going to be the person you perceive that human being to be 90% of the time. There's something that happens between the lens and your television set that grabs the essence. And this is kind of woo woo, and I don't think there's any way to prove it. But in my experience, something happens between that lens and the viewer, and the person it's portraying, that reaches in and kind of grabs the essence.
Sure.
And I swear to God, it's been my experience because I've known so many people who are in this business. It's been my life, for 60 some years. And there's something that happens and your perception of who that person is that's going to be proven correct 80 for 90% of the time. If you think the guy's a jackass, chances are he's a jackass.
Yeah.
And if you think you'd like to have a drink with him, chances are you really would.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree with that. I felt that way about people. Just you don't even know why. Especially growing up, seeing these folks on TV. It's like a mystical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's interesting. Really is.
Well, and I guess to go back to your original question, to the premise, what did Tex see in me? I think he saw a person he thought had credibility, that had, and this is so self-aggrandizing, I don't mean to be that way, but I think he saw a person with whom people could feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm being a little pat myself in the back here, and I don't mean to do that, but it's a heck of a legitimate question about what did Tex see, and I thought he saw a guy that is essentially comfortable in his own skin, essentially that.
Well, you were there for a long time.
Oh,
Long time.
yeah. Well, the thing about I mentioned Brad a while ago. Uh, I started in '67. Brad is still going.
Mm.
That's two guys on Cowboy Radio from '67 to 2022.
Amazing.
Isn't it though?
Really is.
And in local television, I started again at Channel 8 in Dallas Fort Worth in 1967. In '83, they brought aboard a guy named Dale Hansen, and Dale just retired. So in channel WFAA TV in Dallas has had two sports directors from '67 to 2021. And that's, I don't know where you could find that anywhere else in the country.
That's got to be unheard of.
Yeah, it really is. And Dale, we're such different personalities, but he's a man of courage. I'll tell you this. He he had a sports show that I think a lot of local stations do it now, that ran 15, 20 minutes on Sunday night. And he would take stands that were socially unpopular. I mean, I remember I was happened to be in Dallas on some kind of a visit and was staying in a hotel and watched Dale on his Sunday night show. And Missouri had a linebacker named Michael Sams who had just come out as a gay person. And he was getting vitriol from all, particularly in the SEC. You know, it's lifestyle.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Dale took to his defense, and I thought, Dale, you showed me some courage to do that, because Dallas Fort Worth is not the essence of liberalism.
Right.
And anyway, Dale, we were light years apart in personality. Light years. But I admired the work he did. I really, really did. We didn't we didn't see eye to eye on some personal issues. Not that one, but anyway, I'm trying to couch the potato here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay. I don't think we ever had a drink together. Yeah.
You know, I'll just, we jump around on here, like I said. So I'm just, thinking about things about Austin. Since you were there, kind of before, let's say pre-Willie and post-Willie.
Yes.
How did you see that change, or was you ever a part of that movement with him and Jerry Jeff? And
I got so many stories. Wow. I'll bet you you got it in doing what you do for a living. One of my best friends in music is Ray Benson.
Asleep at the wheel. Absolutely.
Wheel. Yeah. We're dear friends. Matter of fact, he's home. He's off the road now. And we're going to have dinner together here in the next 2 weeks. Well, we're going to be in Austin until December 6th. And Ray and I played each other at a golf tournament in Houston at the Woodlands, Andrew, in 1982. And
I'd love to have a picture of what both of y'all.
Oh my God! Well, Houston in August. Well, this was in June. It's still that it doesn't matter. The humidity is always 90%.
Yeah.
And it's just the muggiest place in the world. And this was at a golf event called the Darrell and Willie. And it was Coach Royal and Willie Nelson, who were fast friends.
Yeah.
And the thing I loved about it, and Ray was there to play, and we were paired together. And he swears he still has the photograph. I don't. Of the, the usual pro-am team photo. And
Yeah.
Ray was wearing white golf shoes with white socks and short white shorts. I mean, they were crotch grabbers. I mean, and he's 6'7", and
Yeah.
he's
He's
got
a
a
big old
beard
guy.
down to here.
Yeah.
Oh dear God! But we and I love this event because it was Daryl and Willie, and Willie he invited all of his friends in there. Good
Mm-hmm.
gosh Almighty! And because they would all do picking sessions uh, in their separate hotel rooms that went on till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Uh, I saw your son, the Gillies beer can. Mickey Gilly played there. Uh, and anyway, because of those sessions, and you'd hear all the, oh my gosh, great uh, songwriters as well as as singers.
Yeah.
They didn't start the golf tournament until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Have you ever heard of a charity golf tournament you always got to tee off at 8?
Yeah.
And so you drag yourself to the first tee and think, where am I? Not this one. Oh gosh. And that lasted for about 4 years. And we just treasured that. And Coach Royal is one of my two heroes. I having gotten my start in Austin, it was when he was head coach at the University of Texas. And we were the only station here that at that time. LBJ and Lady Bird owned the station, and nobody ever got a competitive license from the FCC when he was in charge. And Daryl did his weekly coaches show with a guy who had hired me for the job, and I got to know Coach because this was the only Texas was the only show in town, and we just grew close together. I got to work with him one year at ABC, and matter of fact, we watched the first part of the Oklahoma State Texas game yesterday. I was telling Nancy, my wife, I did one game at Oklahoma State, and that was in 1980 with Coach Royal as my sidekick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I got to work with him for 1 year, and I just loved the guy. Having covered him and then become friends with him, he did. We were doing a game somewhere on a Saturday, and we were flying back. Gosh, I know where it was. Another garden spot, Manhattan, Kansas. Which is about as far removed from the larger Manhattan as you can get.
Yeah. To say the least.
And the Cowboys had a Monday night game. And so Daryl and I are flying back to Dallas-Fort Worth, and then he's going, that's where we were living, and we were going to switch. He was going to switch planes and fly home to Austin. And he lived here in Austin on the Onion Creek Country Club. And he said, I know you got a Monday night game. What are you guys doing tomorrow? And I said, we got no plans at all. He said, good. Then you're gonna get on an airplane in the morning, and you're gonna fly to Austin. Edith and I are gonna pick you up, and you're gonna come spend Saturday and Sunday night with us. And Sunday afternoon, we're gonna go out and play Willie's golf course. And Willie it was on the Pedernales River, about 40 miles from downtown Austin. And we went out there and good gosh almighty, what a great weekend. We went to a place with the ironic name of Mona's Yacht Club. It was this dive on the Pedernales River. And Daryl and Edith, his wife, who's still living, and Nancy and I went in there, And there's a songwriter, he's long gone now, but a guy named Floyd Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
He was holding court with a guitar in the corner, and the four of us sat down, listened to Floyd Tillman. And then that afternoon, we had gone out, and Willie had just come in from Finland, where he was filming a movie called Barbarossa. And so he got there in time to say hello to us. Now, he was dead tired, so he wasn't going to play golf. I said, Willie, what's par for this course? He said, it's par is whatever I say it is. He said, yesterday I shot 45. I was 1 under par for the. Oh, dear God.
Willie just makes up his own rules as he goes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
In every aspect of life and business and you name it. I mean, he's one of a kind.
Andrew, we're right downtown Austin. Matter of fact, I'm looking out west right now. We're in a high-rise condo, and we're not 2 blocks away from where they tape or do live Austin City Limits.
Yeah,
right on Willie Nelson Boulevard.
Yeah,
which is otherwise known as 2nd Street.
Yeah. Did you ever come across Guy Clark or Towns Van Zandt or Blaze Foley? Any of those guys?
No, I know the names, but I didn't. I'm trying to remember some of those guys who played at the Darrell and Willie.
There's no telling.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. The guy that wrote Delta Dawn, Alex Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know him or know him?
I know of him. I've never met him.
Okay. Well, here's another association I've got with country music. Tonya Tucker, he wrote Delta Dawn for Tonya Tucker, and she recorded that. I think she was 14.
Yeah, 13 or 14. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And she came to Steamboat a couple times and played, and I got to know her pretty well, and she is a vivid description of a wild child.
Yes.
Holy cow. And then one year when I was still doing all of our golf instead of doing just the Masters, we were doing the Pebble Beach, and she and Glenn Campbell had just broken up.
Mm.
And that was torturous. And we sat in the lobby at the bar of the Pebble Beach Club or whatever it is called. And Glenn Campbell got into his cups and was going on. And I thought Nancy and I were going to take him to bed, put him to bed, because he was just moaning and groaning about Tonya and how she'd done him wrong. And,
yeah, that was kind of a big
Woo!
story back then. And of course, that don't help things, because these are people, man.
You bet.
That makes it worse. But when you're in the spotlight, you don't have any privacy whatsoever.
Right.
But you kind of sign up for that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I seen a clip one day. I think it's when you was on ABC interviewing Bear Bryant on the sideline.
Yeah.
And he said, we're playing like we're afraid we're going to hurt somebody. And you're like, thank you, coach.
You got a great memory. Yeah, that was in 81. And I was still at ABC. I had not yet gotten the dreaded call of we're going to move in a different direction, but it was coming. And that was the 81 Iron Bowl. And Bear was going after his 312th victory in that game. And this was when Amos Alonzo Stagg, one of the legendary coaches in the early 20th century, he had the record. And two memories come out. They signed me to sidelines, and they wanted somebody. Steve Davis, who was another former partner of mine, Steve is no U quarterback. We lost him tragically in a private jet crash about 7 years ago. But they had Steve on, but he was not. He was an All-American quarterback at OU, but he wasn't an accomplished radio television guy at the time. So Chuck Howard, the executive producer at ABC, called me and said, "We want you to go and do the interview with Coach Bryant if he wins." And Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles were upstairs, and I was the sideline guy. And two things about that. First of all, they were trailing Pat Dye and Auburn at the half, and Bear came out. And that picture that you're talking about, some Birmingham News Herald guy, photographer, took the picture and then sent it to me. And I got cheeky, and I thought, well, I'll send this to Coach Bryant's office to his sports information director. And by golly, he got it and signed it and returned it to me. And I treasure that photo. So at halftime, he's coming out and they're training. And the photo is of me talking to Coach, telling him, "Coach, we need to stop and do this halftime interview." And he said, "Son, they're about to kick off." I can't get as low as he did.
Yeah.
And I said, "Coach, trust me on this. They're not going to kick off until we do this interview." "Well, all right, be quick about it." So that's the photograph. And then by rehearsal, they had me go under the north stands at Legion Field in Birmingham. And by now, as the sun had set, it was getting dark. And with 2 minutes to go in the game, the Alabama had come back, and then they're not comfortably in the lead. So I head down there with security and to get me stationed, and the camera guys with me, and now it's almost total darkness. And Chuck Howard, who was producing the game, said, "Verne, are you there?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Is your camera guy there?" And I said, "Yes, he is." And he said, "Well, I can't see you." I said, "Well, there's no light guy here." And he said, "What?" I said, "There is no lighting technician here to light this." And he said, "Oh my God, he's stronger than that." And meanwhile, I can now hear the clumping of feet as Bryant and his security is coming through, and they're approaching. And Chuck said, "Is Coach Bryant there yet?" I said, "He's on the way. I can vaguely make out his." And he said, "Where's the GD lighting technician?" I said, "Chuck, I don't know. He's not here." And he got very vivid in his language. And it was just going to my headset. Well, something about we pay $19 million a year for this effing thing, and we can't get an effing technician there to light the effing scene. And now Coach Bryant walked up and he said, "You ready?" So I've got videotape of it. The entire post-game interview took place in complete darkness.
Oh man, what a nightmare!
Yeah.
Was that the first time you had come across Coach Bryant or met him?
I believe it was. Yes. I believe I'm quite certain it was. And then he died. They made it to the Liberty Bowl, and he died the next year.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was a legend. I mean, and now Saban is, encroaching.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Isn't it though?
I mean, Bear Bryant to an Alabama fan when I was growing up could never be matched. That was always going to be the legacy, no matter what.
Yeah.
And what Nick Saban has done is just unbelievable.
Off the charts. Off the charts. Well, I do a Wednesday Zoom call with a group of people that I call SEC reprobates. And there are about 12, 13 of us that get on every Wednesday, almost all retired. Well, no, that's not quite true. We got 4 people from Auburn, including the associate athletic director. Uh, and anyway, David Housel from Auburn, Eli Gold is part of it. Uh,
Love Eli.
oh, me too. We're dear, dear, dear friends.
How is he?
He's still struggling.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, he's got some health problems. Uh, I I check on him every week, not in touch with him, but through others
Yeah.
who are closer to him than I am. But uh, I'll tell you a quick Eli story. Uh, Eli Eli is a large economy version of me. Uh, he's a huge man, and I'm growing increasingly larger. But I'm 5'9". He's about 6'2". And years and years and years ago, we were doing a game in Tuscaloosa. Eli lives in Birmingham, so he's made that he could do it blindfolded. That trip down I-20. We were at Chuck's Cafe in downtown Tuscaloosa, and it's our usual group. At that time, it was Gary Danielson, Tracy Wilson. Wilson was our sideline reporter, our producer, Craig Silver, director, Steve Melton. We're all having dinner. And some guy who had really had way too much to drink came over and interrupted at the table and leaned in. He said, Eli, I don't mean to bother you, but I sure love you. And I said, thank you very much. Just let it go. Now, we're going to pay the bill. So the waitress comes, a food server, and hands us the bill. Our producer picked it up, God love him. And the guy comes back. He said, Eli, I just really think you're wonderful. I said, thank you. No, appreciate it. Let it go. Now we're going out, and the manager of Chuck's asked the group to pose, and he's got a wall of folks that are recognizable. And he wanted to add our portrait. So we're posing for the picture. And a guy comes in, he tugs at my coat, and he said, Eli. And I said, look, pal, I am not Eli. And he looked at me and he said, well, you should be. So Eli's got a great sense of humor, and he is a large man. And he sent this. I've got 2 T-shirts in our home in Steamboat Spring of this quadruple X, and it's got check the box, Eli, Verne, photographs of each of us, and then you got to check which one is Verne, which one is Eli, and because I can see a vague resemblance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I've never really thought about that, but
no,
y'all do have a similar look.
yeah,
It's not identical, but it's similar.
no, similar is a good word. If you really have too much to drink, especially.
Yeah. Well, he should be.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I hope you told him about that.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Oh man, you did the Olympics, even, for God's
Yeah.
sakes.
Uh-huh.
The Tonya Harding and all that crazy press stuff going on with them. I mean, that was probably crazy.
I did. Well, there's a little background, not only on that one. We did 3, and again, we were at Pebble Beach. John Madden was hosting John was too big for a seminar. This was a symposium. Wow, give me a break. But
symposium.
he had the clout to do it, and it was a 3-day event over a long weekend, obviously. And we stayed at the Pebble Beach Hotel, or the main one, and played golf in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'd get together for the symposium, and we had a stenographer there, and we'd all lie to each other. But, well, how do you spend your Monday? Well, on Monday I read and write and memorize it. How do you on Tuesday? And each of us had manufactured excuses for how we spent the week. Right? The bullshit was amazing.
I can imagine.
Oh, brother.
You
And
say the word symposium, and
yeah, that's you got it. Uh, so anyway, while we're there, I get a call from New York, uh, and I guess others in the group did too. But they said we got the rights to the next three Winter Olympic Games. Well, I live in a ski resort full time, and I thought, great, Billy Kidd, who's a legendary skier in North America, was our director of skiing. He's just retired, and so I knew Billy, and I thought he was our on the air guy. Naturally, given where I live, I'll do the Alpine events. And then he called and said, "We got the assignments for the Olympics. You're doing figure skating," and I went orbital. And I thought, "Oh dear God." Uh, and Nancy saw me go orbital. I was descending in under a parachute in the ocean. And she said, "Calm down, calm down. You love music of all kinds, and you love athleticism." She said, "You're going to be just fine." And I worked with Scott Hamilton, who remains a dear friend of mine. And we did three. We did Albertville, France in '92, Tonya and Nancy in '94, and then Nagano, Japan in '98. And the most memorable, obviously, is Tonya and Nancy. It was a cartoon show come to life. And there was a movie called I, Tonya. It came out about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was asked if I saw it, and I did. Margot Robbie, I think was her name, won an Academy Award for her. And I was asked my reaction. I said, well, knowing the principal, I felt it was overly sympathetic to Tonya Harding. Yes, she had a terrible upbringing, but she was a thug, really, and she hired thugs. She herself was not a thug. That's too strong a word, but her ex-husband certainly was, and he's the guy that hired the three, including this clown named Shane Stant. And they expressed intent of the crowbar across the thigh was to break her leg.
Yeah.
And Tonya could skate. I mean, she was athletic. She wasn't very graceful, but she finished fourth behind Kerrigan in '92. Christy Yamaguchi won the gold. This little gal from Japan named Midori Ito was second, and Nancy Kerrigan was third. Tonya was fourth. So we knew she had the ability, and she thought she had to get Kerrigan out of the way, and so they attacked Kerrigan on the night of January 6th in Detroit. And then lawsuits ensued back and forth, and she was kicked off the team. She filed. She won her case. She was put back on the team. And this buildup, they were on the cover, I don't know, 20 magazines, including all the biggies at the time. And when we finally got to Lillehammer, actually it was in Hamar, Norway, about 30 miles south of Lillehammer. It was just this incredible scene.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I can vividly remember that Scott and Tracy Wilson, as opposed to Wolfson. Wilson was our third member of our commentary team. She was a wonderful person, a lady from Canada, and had won a bronze medal in her discipline, ice dance. The three of us were sitting in our little broadcast perch when the two women took the ice in the main Northern Lights Hall for the first time. And there were at least 400 accredited writers who could get in, but CBS had exclusive North American rights or United States rights. And so we were the only broadcasters who were involved in the arena. And so help me God, Andrew, at one point, we left almost tell you the names of the 6 different CBS news crews that were scattered around the ring. Martha Teichner, John Blackstone, Susan Spencer, Mark Phillips. I'm forgetting one, and then right below us was Connie Chung, who was co-anchoring the evening news with Dan Rather back in New York. And Scott was livid, and he said, somebody has lost sight of the fact that these young men and women have earned the right to compete for a medal, and they're almost sideshows compared to the main event. And he was just beside himself with anger. And then, the Wednesday night event came, and Tonya finished about where Scott thought he would. Kerrigan was leading. Oksana Bayul, this little sprite from Ukraine, was in second, and Tonya was eighth. And then our boss, Neil Pilson, saw us at practice the next morning. He said, "Did you hear about the overnights?" No, we hadn't. What? He said, "Well, the initial rating was 48.5 rating, which means 48.5% of every television set in the United States was tuned to the event. And the estimated audience was 126 million people." So hype works. And the numbers were down for Friday night, but that's when Tonya Scott said off camera she's hijacked the Olympics. That's when her bootlace broke. Yeah.
The 90s was kind of a different time.
Yeah.
All the OJ stuff and.
Yep, you're right.
Is I don't know. It's almost like all these kind of news stories. I never, for the life of me, understood why the damn helicopter with the camera was following the Bronco.
Yeah, that's right.
It was almost like a show.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it sure was. It sure was.
I don't know. The 90s, I feel like pop culture kind of became a thing in the 90s.
Well, tabloid television did, didn't it? I think.
Absolutely.
Inside Edition and Entertainment Tonight and the advent of Bill O'Reilly.
I mean, and I know you worked for Turner for a few years, but my God, what Ted Turner did is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I took the money.
Yeah.
I stayed with CBS rather than go to Fox, and took a hell of a salary cut, really, in '95 when we lost the NFL. But they had given me my break, and I was going to make things well. And then Mike Pearl, who had been the executive producer, at CBS, took the job at Turner. And Mike was the executive producer, and he called me, "Why don't you think about coming over here?" So initially, I was there to do the NBA game of the week on Thursday night, and then Sunday night they had half the NFL schedule. So my three basketball partners in the 3 years I was there, Chuck Daly, Danny Ainge with the Celtics, now the Utah Jazz, and Doc Rivers, coach of the 76ers. My basketball partner, or my football partner rather, was Pat Hayden. And Pat's one of the better guys I've ever known in my life. But then CBS reacquired the rights to the NFL, and we're in Nagano, Japan, for the Olympic Games in '98, and we're standing in the broadcast area that we had, and during an ice break, when they bring the Zambonis out, we had a 15-minute break, and my boss Sean McManus and his sidekick Tony Petitti walked into the booth and said, he looked at me and he said, "Are you ready to come back home?" And after I got down on my knees and kissed his shoes, and thanked him profusely, Yeah. So then I came back in '98 and worked with Randy Cross the first year and Dan Deerdorf in '99. And then I got the fateful call that said, Sean said, we're going to move you to the NFL. I mean, to the SEC.
SEC.
And that really, at that point, it changed my life. I mean,
Well, while you were there at Turner, those years that you were there, the short time you was there, do you remember how big pro wrestling got on Turner's networks?
I do. Yeah.
WCW was
Yeah.
like insane.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any of the Cable Ace Award shows or anything
No,
like
I
that?
didn't. No, no,
Okay.
no. No, not at all. Now I worked with Ernie Johnson, uh, and consider him a very close friend still. And of course, Ernie and Barkley and Kenny and Shaq have redefined sports hosting shows. I mean, it's the best. They won Emmy after Emmy after Emmy after Emmy, as they should.
Yeah.
But no, I had no association with any of the award shows.
Yeah. It was in the year 2000, right? When you
Uh,
went to SEC
yeah,
on CBS.
yeah. I got a call. Rumors started floating around that they were going to go after Dick Enberg at NBC, and I knew from Pat Hayden. Pat had gone to NBC and was doing Notre Dame games with Dick, and we were at a Kentucky Derby, one and only time we've been, and uh, Pat was there. Dick was there. Dick Enberg was, and we were in a private party and under a tent, and we were dancing. Nancy and I, one of the rare times she got me up out of the chair to whirl around the dance floor because I got two left feet, and and Dick Enberg came. He and his wife Barbara scooted by, and I said, "I think you're doing a great job of doing the Notre Dame games with Pat." And he looked at me disgruntledly. He said, "Well, it's not the NFL. I'll guarantee you that." And I thought, "Oh." Uh, and then Sean McManus called me and he said, though I heard a rumor that they were going after Enberg, and I called Sean. He called me back and he said, "No, I can't imagine. He's such a high ticket guy. He's been 35 years at NBC." And then he paused and said, "Now, in the unlikely event that we hired Dick Enberg, how would you feel about going to the SEC?" And I said the appropriate things, and I hung up the phone. I looked at Nancy, and I said, "Honey, pack our bags for Tuscaloosa." And sure enough, it happened. And sure enough, it was the greatest assignment of my career. I mean, to be a part of the rise of the dominance of this conference,
Yeah.
just extraordinary. And they're, in my view, I've got a jaundiced view of it, but they're so far ahead of every other conference in the country, and I hate that we're going to give it up. No, ESPN just had more money than we did, and so we're walking away in 2023 after next season, and I hate that. But
yeah, I do too. It's a tradition.
yeah,
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And I like the broadcast from the production truck standpoint. I like the CBS broadcast better than I do ESPN.
Oh, I do too. And I just I'm loyal to our guys, except when Texas is playing Oklahoma State. But I got to tell you, share a story with you. Gary and I are still in touch, and we're good friends. And he called me about 4 years ago. I'd been gone a couple of years, and he said, "So how are you spending Saturday afternoons?" And I said, "Well, Gary, Nance and I are now joined at the hip with millions of other Americans. We wait for that theme music to come on. We wait for the sound guy to pot it down, crack open your mics, and you and Brad come on. Then we put our feet up on the coffee table, fix a nice iced tea, and we start criticizing the hell out of you.
My
Why
turn.
you shut up? Shut up, for God's sake.
But that's you've got to know, all that criticizing, all the stupid shit on social media, the memes, the Uncle Gary, all this stuff. It's because it's like, they love to hate y'all for some reason.
Oh.
It's not like they hate y'all. It's like this is fun. Like I got to have them in my life so I can, you know what I mean? Like
do I ever? And it's the anonymity that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
The hiding behind and
Yeah.
no name. That drives me crazy. And I made the sad mistake years ago. I'm not. I promise you, I am not on social media. Just because you got to be exposed to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a Twitter account. I've made it this far in my life, and I did one time. Oh, Gary called me once, and we were working together still, and he said, "Have you listened to Paul Feinbaum today?" And I said, "No, I don't have it on." I know Paul. I think he's one of the better talk show guys in sports television.
Yeah.
But he said, they're killing you on the Feinbaum show. Me. And you know why? Because I had misidentified an Alabama player. And I got his name wrong. And I did. I got something stuck up here. But I mean, the name calling and the vitriol was just horrendous. And I thought, I just can't expose myself to that. I know it's out there, but my exposure is a lot less than it was in 2016.
Yeah. What's the old saying? If they're talking about you, you're doing something right or something like that. You're
At least you're in the arena.
yeah.
They're not. Yeah, I know there are a couple of bromides about that. Yeah, but
I'll tell you, you're much better off staying off of social media.
oh yeah, I know that. Uh, I just decided, uh, as a public person, your exposure is so great,
Yeah.
and there are people who just love to hate,
Yeah.
and that's their purpose in life almost. So, no, thank you.
Yeah. That's some miserable,
Oh,
miserable human beings. If you want to, I loosely say human beings.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's unbelievable.
Uh,
The how did the Happy Gilmore thing come about?
mm, 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 mm.
Because I know, especially probably people my age. I'm 37 right now,
Okay.
almost 38. That's a lot of people know you from that too.
Oh gosh, more than you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I only slightly facetiously say, well, no, it's not even facetious. It is the gift that keeps on giving because it's connected me across two and sometimes now three generations, uh, because it's so popular with young people. And every generation that comes up, it seems to be passed down. Uh, we taped that in 1996 and filmed it in Vancouver, uh, up near Whistler. Uh, I got a call from my agent, Bob Rosen, and he said, "There's a part in this movie starring Adam Sandler, and I've gotten you you're the guy that they want to use." Well, okay. So I flew to Vancouver on I don't remember now what day of the week. Uh, the next morning they picked me up at the hotel and took me to the site. Now where they shot all of the actual golf scenes on the golf course in Whistler. My scenes were shot in Vancouver. They had rented an empty hospital, and in the backyard they'd set up a golf set. Um, the director was a guy named Dennis Dugan, who also played in the movie. He played the PGA chair guy. And Sandler was there, of course. And I showed up at 7 in the morning. They had took me to makeup, the whole bit. I had a chair with my name on it. I thought, well, this is a nice way to live. Holy cow. And then the director said to this really handsome guy that was standing on the fringe of the group, he said, Jack, his name was Jack Jaraputo. He said, let's do an inside joke just for us. And nobody else in the world will know what it's all about. But I want you to go over there with makeup and hair and get a coat and a nice shirt and tie. And you're going to sit next to Verne in every scene. But you can't say a word because you're not a member of the Screen Actors Guild. So that's Jack, who sits there and just nods. It turns out that Jack Jaraputo was Adam Sandler's roommate at New York University Film School.
Oh, wow.
That's why he was there. And subsequently, I've seen Jack's name as executive producer of a lot of Adam Sandler's films. But they hired 400 extras, and they set the setup, whatever they call it, golf. It was a takeoff on the Golf Network. And that's where, the line that gets everybody for whatever reason, when I put my hand over the mic and said, who the hell is Happy Gilmore?
Yeah.
And Jack just kind of shrugged, and that one gets him every time. And I'm not sure. Now, they did fly us out to Los Angeles for the world premiere of Happy Gilmore. And it was a kick. I mean, Nancy and I walked on a red carpet. We sat down, and when that line came up in the movie, everybody laughed. And I thought, well, this is a really good dose of satisfaction to hear your line get laughed like that. One more story about it, and of course it's played once a month on USA Cable. I swear, and it just keeps getting passed out. I was doing a game in Arizona, basketball game with Billy Packer, and we had North Carolina at Arizona, and so North Carolina came in, and Roy Williams was the coach at Carolina. Luke Olson was at Arizona. And Billy and I and the producer and director were sitting in the practice halfway up because Roy didn't want us down on the sidelines because we could hear him curse out his team. So anyway, after practice, the guys are in post-practice stretching exercise. They're laying on the floor. And this tall kid comes loping up the stands and looks in at our little group, and he said, Mr. Lundquist, the group would like you to come down and say hello to him. And I said, you mean Billy Packer? And he said, no, they've asked for you. I said, what the heck? So I followed him back down, and I'm standing above the prone figure of Tyler Hansborough, 6'10" All-American. And he's got a rope, and he's stretching back. And he looks up at me and he said, okay, now give us the line from Happy Gilmore. And I knew exactly what he wanted. So I did the whole who the hell is Happy? And the whole damn team started laughing. And I told the guys, now, if they did win the national title, I expected a shout out for giving them the motivational speech that propelled them forward. Well, they did win the national title, and the ungrateful bastards never said a word. Not a word.
Having you and Bob Barker in there.
Oh, yeah.
Just,
well,
genius.
Bob Barker was, and we got to meet him. he was not there when I was, because I was like the last day of shooting, but Adam Sandler was there, and Carl Weathers was there, the caddy, the long the caddy,
Yeah.
Chris O'Donnell, who played Shooter McGavin.
Yeah.
They were all there. I've got it in my home in the office in Steamboat. I've got a photo of Sandler and the caddy and Chris O'Donnell and the whole group. I'm love to show that one off. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That'll live forever,
Yeah.
And,
Oh, I know. I know.
uh, I remember, of course, the 2009, I believe it was, the Alabama Tennessee game. Oh
Uh huh.
my God. I think I was standing on the couch, and the couch popped a couple of times, I remember. And Terrence Cody, big Mount Cody out there.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man, what a get! Because that was that was going to be the perfect season. That was the first. That was the first one there since '92 that we were wanting so bad, and it came down to all those field goals.
yeah. And he blocked two of them.
He blocked two of them, but
Yeah.
your call at the end was it was perfect.
Well,
Perfect.
I vividly remember it, and that one and the Iron Bowl of 2013, of course.
Oh God, wait, I want yeah.
I understand. That's
Oh
an open wound.
man, I mean, I can't imagine that atmosphere. To be in that atmosphere
Unbelievable. Yeah,
was
yeah,
just insane. And of course, I keep thinking there's going to be a block in the back or something because
yeah.
at least half the time that happens, and then we're good. But no,
No,
it was Chris Davis, right?
yeah, Chris Davis,
Yeah.
and on this little Zoom call we do on Wednesdays, that game came up, and of course because we had a lot of Auburn people on the call, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember Ellis Johnson was the defensive coordinator, and during the long time that they're trying to decide whether or not there was 1 second left, it took them 7 minutes, and they wanted to synchronize our end zone camera with their game camera so they could tell precisely when his foot hit the ground.
Yeah.
And Johnson, uh, the defensive coordinator, special teams coach too, he made a change. And Chris Davis was not the original guy back there. And then during that long, lengthy 7 minute delay, he put Chris Davis back. And like you said, Andrew, there wasn't a block in the back. And Gary's summation was great on the third replay because Alabama had the field goal blocking unit out there. And so on the third replay, third time we played it back, Gary said at the very end, just to punctuate the whole thing, he said, well, no wonder they couldn't make the tackle. They had nothing but fat guys on the field.
Yeah, I forgot about that. He did say that.
Yeah. And I remember when I said no flags.
Yeah.
And then there was a fraction of a second when I looked back to my right and I thought, dear God, don't let there be any flags. Because,
That's all I need. Yeah. Because I've already said.
Yeah, no flags. So anyway.
One thing about your calls, especially the ones people really remember, like the chip shot, well, with Jack Nicklaus in 86, right?
86.
And the Tiger one in way later, you kind of let the moment speak for itself.
Well, I think that's the key to react and not get out in front. Let it happen first and then react to what you've just seen. And in my case, I said what I did I remember vividly when Jack was standing over the putt, when he was walking up, I thought, well, whatever you say, keep it succinct and get out of the way.
Yeah.
Because if he makes it, the world's going to explode.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tiger. when I saw it go in, I said, "In your life, have you ever seen it?" Because I never had, and I think people at home were thinking the same thing. I can't believe Jack Buck, the late Jack Buck, had a great line of Kirk Gibson's pinch hit home run in the Oakland Dodgers '88 World Series game when Kirk Gibson limped to the plate. Nobody thought he could play, and the ball he hits a pinch hit 2-run homer over the right field wall. And Jack's summation was, "I don't believe what my eyes just saw."
Oh, yeah.
And that was succinct. His counterpart doing the game on television was Vin Scully, of whom there has never been an equal in our business ever. And Scully said in his summation after Gibson rounded home, touch home, went in. Scully hadn't said a word. Out for an ovation. Scully still doesn't speak. Gibson's back in. He comes out for the second time. Only his timing was superb. And when the crowd noise begins to subside, Scully says, "In a year of the improbable, the impossible has occurred."
You can't beat that.
No. And I knew Vin reasonably well. And I saw him one time in LA, and I said, I brought that phrase up. I said, "That's the best." Al Michaels gets all kinds of credit for "Do You Believe in Miracles?" which was a great, great call. But Scully was poetry. And I said, "How in the world did you come up with that?" And he shook his head. He said, "I don't know, but it's pretty good, wasn't it?"
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't get much more perfect than that.
Eloquence personified.
Did you first meet Nick Saban when he was with Belichick?
Yes. Yeah. Cleveland Browns. Yeah. When he was defensive coordinator.
Was he, could you see a hunger in him, or was he just kind of out there doing the best?
No. We were doing a preseason game. Cleveland and the Giants, I believe. Sims was playing, I know. And I was doing the game with John Madden. And Bill, because he was the defensive coordinator, we always talked to offensive and defensive and head coach and 4 or 5 players. That's a format that everybody follows. And I remember meeting with Nick then. That's the first time I met him. And then, of course, I knew him when he was at LSU. And then I really got to know him at Alabama because I did so many of their games. And, I allowed myself, not ever on the air, but in a personal way, I really respect Nick, and I consider him a good friend. And you can't ever let that get in the way of what your responsibility is. But when I knew it was my last game at Alabama, Nick, we always met with him at 11:30 every Friday morning, and he comes in the meeting, and he gives us exactly half an hour, and then he has a meeting with a women's group called Nick at Noon, and 1,500 ladies show up every Friday. That weekend, his SID, Sports Information Director, opened the door, Jeff Purinton, and he said, "Nick wants you to come in here to the main media gathering place." And there was a big A on the wall, and Nick had a cameraman already set up. And he said, "I thought we'd get a memento for you of your last trip to Tuscaloosa." Wow. And he signed it. I've got it on my office wall, and I treasure that. Nick, he signed it, "Your friend, Nick." And that's where the barrier comes down. And I know him. I once said, and I knew him well enough to be cheeky with him every once in a while. And I said, "Nick, you when you address the local media, you sometimes get a little sarcastic and harsh. Why?" And his SID, Jeff, blurted in, "Because they deserve it." I can't answer that. I can't respond to that. But no, I admire him, uh, and I've found over the years that uh, I I respond to people I respect, and I want human beings that I care about to do well, to succeed, not programs, not
Absolutely.
colleges or universities. It's the people involved. And if I care about them, I care that they succeed.
Yeah.
And Nick falls in that category. I do believe I've had a relationship with him that gives me access to a little bit. The joy of his life is Terry, or he
Yeah.
calls it Miss Terry, and she is well. When he uh, my first ever televised game in '74 was for ABC, and it was Ohio University at Kent State. And the graduate assistant on that Kent State team was a guy named Nick Saban. Another graduate assistant was Gary Pinkel, who just went to the College Football Hall of Fame, or is going yet. Uh, and Nick and he was waiting for Terry to graduate. She was a year behind him. And we've had fun over the years that pretending like we both remember. I said, Nick, you were sitting in that booth next to us and you're on the headset. He said, oh, yeah, I remember looking over you. And I thought, that guy's going to succeed at CBS years now. No, neither one of us remember. But Terry is a treasure, and she's something else. So.
Well, 2016, that Army Navy game, how did that feel, knowing that was going to be your last football?
It was very emotional, and I had asked for a couple of minutes at the end of the day to say goodbye, and again, it was predetermined. I mean, I knew going into that year. It's like my master's golf experience. Uh, the understanding I've got with management at CBS is I'm going to do two more because that'll give me 39 next spring and 40 the year after. Well, we had decided orderly transition was proper, and I don't disagree with that. I wanted to keep going, but I also understood the challenge of preparing for a football telecast is dramatically more severe than getting ready for a golf telecast. I mean, names and numbers, and those are challenges now, and we're going to become that. So I knew that was my last one, uh, and I had asked for a couple of minutes at the end, and it was graciously given to me. And I said to the producer, Craig Silver, I'm going to need a teleprompter. He said, we can't get a teleprompter up there. And I said, Craig, I need a teleprompter. I can't memorize this. It's going to be emotional for me anyway. And so we found a way to get a teleprompter up there. And even so, when it came time, uh, Nancy was standing 10 feet away over to my left. And knowing she was there, it was just more than I could almost bear. And so, but it was proper. Uh, would I like to have continued? Yes, but I couldn't. I don't think I could do names and numbers now like I could then. Just the natural attrition of memory.
Yeah.
First names drive me nuts now, and but I can remember something. It's short-term memory,
Yeah.
and it's a product of being 82 years of age. And like I said, the challenge in golf is much, much less severe. So,
Well, what do you think about all these Hall of Fames and all these awards and all this recognition, that you've got?
uh,
How does that make you? I mean, I know it's got to be an honor, but really, how does it make you feel?
to whatever degree one who does what I do for a living can feel humbled, because there's a certain narcissism involved in what we all do, all of us who have the gall to think that we can get on national television and entertain folks for 3.5 hours or keep them informed and entertained, because that's part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It is part showbiz.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, I can remember years ago in the early, well, mid '80s, let's say, when I was working with Terry, uh, right about that time, I'm thinking to myself, I'm just not going to get there, not to the extent that I've aspired, and quite obviously, something gelled, and it did. But I am humbled by it all. All of this, by the way, all the memorabilia, all the awards and plaques and photographs uh, will ultimately go to my alma mater, Texas Lutheran. They are doing me the singular honor of naming a new student athletic center in my name.
Well
And
deserved.
yeah, well, thank you. And Mr. Bradshaw ponied up $50,000 as a kickoff, uh,
Mm.
and God love him for that. Uh, but that was at the banquet last March when they announced that they were going to do this. Matter of fact, I've got a meeting on the phone tomorrow with the president of the university about what, because we need to raise a lot of money. And guess who they're counting on to help? Well, it's going to be named after you. You get on the phone. I know
Yeah.
that's coming. I know it's coming, and that's fine. But it's all that is going to go in display cases at Texas Lutheran, and the other. Nancy and I don't have children, so we can be a little more self-indulgent than a lot of other people, and we're both very involved in a music festival in Austin, Steamboat, rather, every summer, and half of it will go there. So anyway, uh, hope it's a long way off.
Me too, man. That's
Yeah.
uh I'm just glad that you seem to be, you and Nancy just seem to be enjoying life at this point.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, we are. I can't wait. We're flying to Jacksonville Wednesday, and I called Craig Silver and I said, "Do you know anybody who'd give me a CBS credential?" No, I am not going to stay in the booth with Brad and Gary. They don't need me in there. And I've not been to a game since I retired. Uh,
Really?
well, I did go to a Georgia Florida game, but it was too early for me to infringe on Brad's space. So I sat in the main press box. That was a couple years ago. But they know we're coming. And Nancy's not, we're staying with friends who have a beautiful place on the beach. And I said, honey, do you want to go to the game? She said, not in your life. So, and I'm doing a speech at the Jacksonville Touchdown Club next Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I keep my big toe in it, uh, and still enjoy interacting with folks.
Well, man, just really glad you're doing well, in
Yeah.
good health, you and your wife both, and glad you're still out there. What your words and your life and experiences inspire a lot of people.
Andrew, thank you. This has been very enjoyable, by the way.
Oh, me too. It's been a huge honor. I'm glad you sat down here with us for a few minutes. All right, y'all been watching Picking It Out, and we'll see you next time.